in those committees are chairman, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Hassan, Honorable Hassan of Kamkunji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must say that I was rather surprised by the comment of Mheshimiwa Chipkonga, because I served both in the 10th and the 11th Parliament, and I don't remember any competition among members of Parliament. But he has a point, in the sense that I think there is a general lethargy, there's a general lack of commitment, particularly among the younger, newer members of Parliament, some of them who have been saddled with the responsibilities.
Order, honorable members. When a member is on a point of order, no other member can rise on another point of order.
Some of these new guys have been saddled with chairmanships and vice chairmanship positions, of which they do not have the experience and the weight to be able to carry it into the House. But the other thing also, Mr. Speaker, is that I find that we are not getting enough feedback on the questions and the statements that we raise here in Parliament, which is a little bit disappointing, because one would expect that the chairpersons and the vice chairs would be running around to make sure that, in fact, the issues that are raised here are responded to in timely manner. And most of the time, they are completely absent from this House. So I think you should send them a very strong message, because they have a responsibility to be here, to listen to what is happening here, and to respond to members' requests relating to the committees that they chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I honestly don't want to escalate debate on this. Maclap, what is the problem? Are you also a chair of a committee?
Mr. Speaker, I am ready to be a chairman of a committee or a vice chair, because I am loyal to the business of this House, because that is what the people of Baringo North sent me to come and do here. Mr. Speaker, and it is also wrong for the Honorable Kamukunji to impute members that new members have no knowledge and experience. As he checked our background, where we went to school and what we have been doing, we could be even more experienced than the other members who have been here, who are unable. The fact that they are not attending and they are vice chairman shows that they are incompetent. And we support our majority leader to replace them and give us an opportunity to serve this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
DK. Yes, member for Soy. There is a mic next to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it is very wrong for the member of parliament from Kamkunji to impute improper motive and say that the new members need to be coming here to learn. If there are members that have been coming in this house religiously, are the new members. It is only that we are always not given the opportunity and the chance to speak in this house. So when you are not given the chance to speak in this house, you have so many other business that you can do. But I can assure you, Chair, if we are given opportunity, we shall be in this house religiously every time there is the business of this house. So it is very improper for...
Sorry, you are not right. Members come to this house. You know, we are so many. Not everybody can speak every day. And the same way as you are speaking, the rest of your colleagues are listening to you. You also have a duty to listen to those who are given an opportunity to speak. I do not know of any other duty you have when the House is sitting other than being in this chamber. If any member is going to hawk some wares out there at the expense of being in the House, then you are letting down your electorate. I encourage each one of us, honorable members, when the House is sitting, there is nothing better than being in this House. You are free airtime, you are televised, you are given publicity, your constituents are watching you on YouTube, they're watching you on their telephones, they're watching you on TV, and assessing you for the next assignment. Yes. So I encourage you, honorable members. Yes, Mwenje.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just want to note that the Honorable Member for Kamukunji did not say that first-timers and new members. He might have used the term some, and there are some who have failed us. And I want to agree with my colleagues on the other side that they should be given those positions. But I also want to encourage the leader of majority that the people who are failing you are your members. We are here, they chair the committees. So share them with the members who are there, and when you're done, we are seated here. You can give me a departmental committee, I'll not let you down. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Mwenje, there are also chairmen and chairpersons on your side of the house who are not here. Yes. Njeri, you'll be the last.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. I want to correct the Honorable Member for Kamukunji. We are young members, we're here, Honorable Speaker, and perhaps correct my colleague that we also get a chance to contribute to this house. I'm one of the young members who have been contributing on this floor. And Mr. Speaker, there are no people to learn from. So I don't know what the old members are telling us that we should be here to learn when they're not even attending. And we are ready to take the leadership of those departmental committees. Young members are ready, and we will always be here to support the agenda of the House and represent our constituents. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There is a member waving his hand uncontrollably. Who is he? That is the women rep Kisi. Yes, Mheshimiwa?
Mike.
You have it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we come to Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we leave everything back, like being new member, being old member. That's why all of us probably are even in the same salary scale. We articulate issues depending on what ails us, not how long you've been in Parliament. We should not use that thing of your new member, you've not been here, in order to share any committee. When you look at me, Mr. Speaker, I'm very capable. That's why I share issues that affect Kisii County, issues to do with FGM, which you've not been hearing for a long time. So, Mr. Speaker, we are very capable and ready. What we need is that opportunity. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We'll leave it there. Honorable members, order. Majority Leader, take your seat. Honorable members, take your seats. Honorable Maluli Njendi, that is not where you should be. Take your seats so that we have order in the House. Honorable women rep for Kisii and those members who are new, there is no harm in being called a newcomer. Definitely, even within the rank and file of Parliament, we have veterans, we have the fathers and mothers of the House, we have ranking members, and we have fresh men and women. There's absolutely no harm in even comparable jurisdictions. They will always have ranking members versus new arrivals. What is important is what you do with the space you have in this House. So I encourage you. I've seen you, the lady from Kisii, you are very active. And I encourage others to be active. But don't be embarrassed to be called a new member, because you are a new member. It's not a... So the member for Kamukunji was not out of order at all. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Do we have any? Yes, Honorable Caleb Amisi.
I'm here, Bwana.
Honorable Caleb Amisi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give a notice of the following motion, that aware that the first aid training is a key component of emergency medical response, EMR. Further aware that first aid response promotes a safer and healthier community by reducing accidents and injuries, noting that lack of first aid training and skills among the general public has contributed to the aggravation of preventable injuries and accidents, which in some cases has led to loss of lives. Further noting that the current education system does not include first aid training as a compulsory subject in the curriculum, which deprives students of essential knowledge and the skills necessary for their personal safety and that of persons around them, acknowledging that it is critical to equip students with the ability to assess and handle day-to-day emergencies in schools and at home. Now, therefore, this House urges the national government through the Ministry of Education to develop and implement a comprehensive first aid curriculum for schools across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Amisi. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable Silvanos Osoro.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 43, I wish to express my deep concern over the recent closure of Nduru Level 5 Hospital in South Mugrango constituency that is within Kisii County, and its devastating impact on the residents of Kisii who depend on this critical health care facility. Honorable Speaker, it is disheartening to note that Nduru Hospital, which was built by the government in partnership with the World Bank, has been closed for almost 3 weeks, causing immense suffering to the people of Kisii County. Honorable Speaker, on 12th of April 2023, the county government sought to transfer medical equipment from the hospital to a different healthcare facility, but members of the local community protested the move by the county government to transfer equipment outside of the sub-county. The incident, Honorable Speaker, resulted in some of the personnel being injured and subsequently led to the closure of the hospital due to safety concerns. As a result, the other medics at the hospital were instructed to down their tools and the facility was indefinitely closed. Honorable Speaker, whereas the national government acted swiftly in restoring security, the hospital remains inoperable. This has adversely affected the most vulnerable who have a difficult time accessing healthcare services, being the only hospital within the sub-county. It is imperative that the county government works with the national government to ensure the reopening of the hospital and the resumption of medical services as soon as possible. Honorable Speaker, the national government recognizes the critical role that the healthcare workers play in our society and has provided the necessary security and the support needed to carry out their duties. Honorable Speaker, action has been taken by the national government to restore security in the area, and I therefore implore on the county government to prioritize the health of our citizens and take prompt action to address the hospital's prolonged closure. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Soro. I have a request by a few members to comment on this. The first one is Mother Wangari. She's walked out. Chikati Dr. MP Tongaren. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fact that one is a governor does not give him permission to move equipment haphazardly from one hospital to another or from one health facility to another. We've had cases where governors remove facilities from hospitals without consultation and without public participation. Mr. Speaker, in my own county in Bungoma at Ndalo Hospital, equipment that were brought by some donors to that hospital were removed and taken to another hospital without the consent of the public, which is the beneficiary of that facility. And therefore, what is going on in in Kisii, in Mugirango, is what should be really discouraged completely as an activity which will not be undertaken by the governors. I wish to recommend to you, Mr. Speaker, that you direct the health committee to visit the hospital, the Shahidi hospital, come up with findings and recommend appropriate action against that governor and restore that equipment to that hospital. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Kaitani Marianne, sorry. Aldai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to comment on the closure of this hospital, Nduru Hospital. And one thing we need to appreciate is that the Constitution is very clear in terms of the functions of a county government and the functions of a national government. The functions of a county government requires that health services are provided to the people. And by closing a hospital, you are then denying those health services to the people of that particular area. Article 43 of the Constitution is very clear in terms of provision of economic and social rights, and especially giving high standards of health services. And if a county closes a hospital, then the people in that area will not be able to access services that are ideally supposed to be accessed by them because the facilities and the resources have been provided. If security is required, and in this case we know that security has been provided for the area, the hospital cannot close. And I therefore feel that the county government has been negligent and decided to move medical facilities and force practitioners not to go to the hospital. We urge that this hospital be opened and the Health Committee of Parliament to investigate this matter and actually ensure that the services that these people of Nduru require get those services. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Doris Donya, Women Rep Kisi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As we all know, health is very fundamental. A building is structured somewhere for doctors to work in and for patients to visit for treatment. Apart from what is ailing Nduru level 4, this could be a clear mandate to the health committee to visit all county hospitals and know what takes course. The issue of patients still sharing beds, Mr. Speaker, is very common. The issue of having less staff in our hospitals, very common. I've come to learn that in Kenya, when something blows up or it's aired through media, that is the time investigation begins and people of that particular area are assisted. So this thing of Nduru, when the health committee visits the area, they will know other things that ail hospitals, not only in Kisii County, but other counties in Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to Chepkonga. Honorable Chepkonga. Had you queued in to speak to this? Statement by Osoro. I see your name here. Okay, forfeit the chance. Yes. You look at C.
Yeah. Can you pass me, then I'll come back. I was talking to the Honorable, my neighbor. So he convoluted.
The last one on that, Kalasinga Majimbo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to comment on this, if I may call it a rock governor, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you don't have to go to the level of you being a governor and vandalizing the instruments that assist the people that you govern, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would urge that you give the direction and a harsh direction that this governor appears before the Committee for Health and explains why, Mr. Speaker, priorities were put in Hospital 1 and he puts it in Hospital 2, Mr. Speaker. And the stoppage, the time the hospital has stopped, patients, Mr. Speaker, suffering. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member, Honorable Soro, for bringing this issue here, and immediate action has to be taken, Mr. Speaker, for us to see that the people are given the due the services they deserve, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Report of the proceedings of the first ordinary session of the 6th Pan-African Parliament. Question to be put.
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable. Who is the member greeting others? Please take your seat, Wakili. Honorable members, we now put the question on order number 8, which is that this House notes the report of the Kenya delegation to the Pan-African Parliament, PAP, on the proceedings of the first ordinary session of the 6th Parliament laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 28th February 2023. As many as of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies.
Chairperson, Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee. Is that Honorable Mulyungi? You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on the consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies in Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, 2015-2016, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 25th April 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, oversight over national revenue and expenditure is amongst the roles of the National Assembly as stipulated under Article 95(4)(c) of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Further, Article 226(2) of the Constitution provides that an Act of Parliament shall provide for the designation of an accounting officer in every public entity at the national level who is accountable to the National Assembly for its financial management. In addition, Article 2298 mandates this House to debate and take appropriate action on audit reports from the Auditor General. In fulfillment of these constitutional provisions, the National Assembly Standing Order number 205B established the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee, DFAC, whose mandate is to examine reports of the Auditor General of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund, among other funds like GAF. Mr. Speaker, sir, the predecessor committee, Special Funds Accounts Committee, SPAC, in the 12th Parliament prepared the 11th report of the audited financial statements of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies in the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years 2013-14, 2014-15, and 2015-16, after receiving evidence from the Chief Executive Officer of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund and the fund account managers of the fund. The Special Funds Accounts Committee tabled its report on the 2nd of December 2021. However, it was not debated by the 12th Parliament. For this reason, the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee, DFAC, which is a successor of SPAC, in its 7th sitting held on 28 February 2023 resolved to revive the matter from the exit report of SPAC by considering the report with a view to present it to the 13th Parliament for consideration and adoption, which I'm doing today. Mr. Speaker, sir, Madam Speaker, I didn't know there was a changeover. Madam Speaker, the committee considered the report in 3 sittings that were held on the 28th of Feb 2023, 16th of March 2023, and 11th of April 2023. The report highlights what was previously examined and tabled before the House by SPAC in the 12th Parliament. The committee reviewed the queries, observations, and recommendations from each constituency. In its sitting held on Tuesday, 11th April 2023, the DPAC committee unanimously adopted the report without amendments. Overview of the report. Madam Speaker, this report highlights what was previously examined and tabled before the House by SPAC in the 12th Parliament. The committee reviewed the audit queries, observations, and the recommendations from each constituency, proposing course of action in response to matters raised by the Office of the Auditor General. The SPAC, in its 11th report, subsequently adopted by DPAC, made specific observations and recommendations arising from the audit queries regarding 11 constituencies, namely Likoni, Kisahuni, Nyali, Jomfu, Bura, Lamu West, Taveta, Mwatate, Nganze, Kilifi North, and Malindi. It recommended that investigations of some issues by competent agencies against specific officers of the NGCDF. In addition, the NGCDF board was tasked to follow up on some issues mentioned in the report. In 15 constituencies, which I've mentioned, in 15 constituencies, namely Muvita, Changamwe, Musambweni, Lungalunga, Matunga, Kinango, Garsen, Galole, Lamu East, Udanyi, Voi, Kaloleni, Kilifi South, Mangarini, and Rabai, the committee made observations and recommendations that relate to policy issues, non-compliance with existing laws, and non-adherence to the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Framework, IPSAS. The section on general observations and recommendations captures issues regarding bookkeeping, preparation and accuracy of financial statements, compliance to reporting standards, and accuracy of the financial statements, standardization of projects and late disbursements of funds, compliance with the audit cycle timelines, non-remittance of statutory deductions, compliance on the use of emergency funds, and reallocation of funds without approval. The report makes recommendations to address the issues raised, some of which I beg to highlight in this report. General observations and recommendations that cut across 26 constituencies. Madam Speaker, having considered the audited financial statements, the committee made the following general observations and the recommendations that cut across the 26 constituencies. Number 1, late disbursement and underutilization of funds. Madam Speaker, the committee observed that there was underutilization of funds in different constituencies due to late disbursement of funds by the board and the National Treasury, hence rollover of funds from the subsequent years due to late receipts. That is like what is happening now. 2 months before the end of the financial year, the Treasury is yet to release over 60% of the constituency's fund. The committee recommends that the National Treasury ensures timely disbursement of funds to the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Board for immediate release to the constituencies. 2, the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury shall submit to the National Assembly constituencies quarterly exchequer disbursements schedule, not later than the 15th day of the end of each quarter. Number 2, bookkeeping, preparation, and accuracy of the financial statements. The committee observed that the bookkeeping and preparation of financial statements is a big challenge in almost all the constituencies' offices. Recommendations. The committee recommends that the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board strengthens the constituencies' offices by establishing treasury units to serve the constituencies. Currently, constituencies are served by the DC's treasury unit. Number 2, compliance to reporting standards and accuracy of the financial statements. The committee observed that fund account managers experience challenges in adopting to the International Public Sector Accounting Standards (IPSAS) reporting framework in the preparation of the financial statements. Recommendations. The NGCDA board should conduct continuous capacity building on financial reporting standards for constituency committees and PMCs to improve quality of reporting and enhance compliance. Number 2, the NGCDA board should consider employing qualified accountants for the constituencies offices beginning financial year 2022-23 within the 5% administrative allocation of the board. This will strengthen the maintenance of books of accounts, preparation of financial statements, and the timely submission of the statements and documents to the auditors by the constituencies' offices. Standardization of the NGCDF construction projects. The committee observed that there were inconsistencies in design, cost, and the quality of similar projects across the constituencies in coastal region. This creates a challenge in determining the value for money, since the cost of construction and the designs are not similar. Further, there is no policy guidelines and cost estimates provided by the NGCDA board to guide the CNDF committees and PMCs in undertaking similar projects in their constituencies. The committee recommends that, number 1, the NGCDA board fast tracks the recruitment of independent quantity surveyors and architects to address the inconsistencies in the projects across the constituencies. Number 2, the accounting officer ensures that all projects undertaken by NGCDF are branded, including the year of funding and the photographs taken during the handing over to by the contractor and commissioning as evidence of ownership of the project. 3, within 3 months of the adoption of this report, the NGCDA board initiates the development of an overarching policy guidelines that include designs and the cost estimates for NGCDA projects. Number 5, reallocation of funds without approval by the NGCDA board. The committee observed that some fund managers implemented projects and reallocated funds without seeking prior approval from the NGCDA board. This was in contravention to Section 6.2 and Section 31 of the NGCDF Act 2015. The Act provides reallocation of funds during the financial year must at all times be within the approval of the NGCDA board. The committee also noted that some National Government Constituency Development Fund committees had not engaged the services of a clerk of works as provided for in the NGCDA board guidelines. The committee recommends that, number 1, the NGCDA board takes administrative action against fund account managers that reallocated funds without the approval of the board, contrary to Section 6 of the NGCDF Act 2015, and then desist from political witch-hunting of MPs who are not signatories to the account. Number 2, the accounting officer ensures that all the fund account managers ensure compliance with Section 6.2 and Section 13 of the NGCDF Act 2015. Number 3, the accounting officers ensures that all fund account managers and PMCs consult and involve the relevant government departments during initiation, cost estimation, and implementation of the projects to ensure that priority projects are selected, adequate budgeting and quality works are provided in compliance with Section 46(1) of the NGCDF Fund Act 2015. Number 6, guidelines on the use of emergency funds. The committee observed that some of the projects funded using emergency funds did not meet the threshold set out in Section 8 of the NGCDF Act 2015. The committee recommends that within 3 months of the adoption of this report, the NGCDF board issues guidelines to all the constituencies and the PMCs clarifying the use of emergency funds. Number 7. Non-remittance of statutory deductions. The committee observed that some fund account managers failed to file and remit various statutory deductions such as NHIF and NSSF as required by the law. The funds paid penalties for non-compliance. The committee recommends that, number 1, accounting officers should ensure that all accounting managers, fund account managers, comply with the National Social Security Fund Act and the National Health Insurance Fund Act, number 9 of 1998. And number 2, the accounting officer in liaison with KRA should put in place sensitization programs on taxation for the fund account managers and the PMCs with the aim of enhancing tax compliance. Number 3, the board should take administrative action against fund account managers who do not remit statutory deductions on time. Conclusion. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, allow me to sincerely thank my fellow members of the committee for their great sacrifice and many hours that they put to come up with this report. My appreciation also goes to the predecessor committee, Special Funds Accounts Committee, who prepared the 11th report of the audited financial statements for the National Government Constituency Development Fund for the 26 constituencies in the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years 2013-14, 2014-15, and 2015-16. I would also wish to thank your office and that of the clerk for the great support for the committee. May I also extend committee appreciation to the Office of the Auditor General and the National Treasury and that of the Chief Executive Officer of the NGCDF Board for availing necessary information that was required, which enabled the committee to finalize this report in time. I therefore call upon members to support this report. I beg to move and I request Honorable Dorothy Kiara, MP, to second the report. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Proceed. Give her the mic.
Have the mic. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to second the motion on the financial statement for the National Government Constituency Development Fund. Madam Speaker, having considered the audited financial statement, the committee made the following general observation and recommendations that cut across the 26 constituencies. 1. bookkeeping preparation and accuracy of the financial statement. The committee observed that the bookkeeping and preparation of financial statement is a big challenge in almost all the constituency offices. Further, the fund account managers face challenges in submitting supporting documents to the auditors on time because the documents are usually in the custody of the sub-county accountants, formerly district accountants. The sub-county accountants are required to sign the financial statement as per the templates issued by the Public Sector Accounting Standard Board. However, they did not undertake this responsibility and more often than not did not cooperate with the fund accounting managers during the audit to ensure timely submission of documents for audit review. Further, Madam Speaker, the delays in the preparation of complete financial statements are also attributed to the lack of adequate capacity at the constituency, national government constituency development offices. The sub-county treasurers, formerly district accountants, in charge of maintaining books of accounts for all national government offices, at the sub-county is also maintaining accounting records and various supporting documents of the fund at the constituencies. Madam Speaker, the committee went further and recommended the following. 1, the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board strengthens the constituency offices by establishing treasury units that serve the constituency. Madam Speaker, number 2, compliance to reporting standards and accuracy of financial statements. The committee observed that fund account managers experience challenges in adapting to the international public sector accounting standards, reporting frameworks in the preparation of financial statements. The committee also observed that the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board reviews the international public sector accounting standards periodically to take into account emerging issues and conform to the best accounting practices. The committee found that some fund account managers experienced challenges in the application of those standards while preparing financial statements as evidenced by the audit matters. Finally, Madam Speaker, the committee recommended that the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board should conduct continuous capacity building on financial reporting standards for constituency committee and the PMCs to improve the quality of reporting and enhance compliance. Madam Speaker, I second and thank you.
Honorable members, I propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on the consideration of reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies in the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years of 2013-2014, 2014-2015, and 2015-2016, laid on the table of this House on Tuesday, 25th April, 2023. No, it's not put. The Honorable Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support this report by the Committee on Decentralized Funds, the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee. Honorable Speaker, let me begin by thanking the Chair, the Honorable Muliungi, for this very timely report that covers, I think, almost 10 counties, I think, 5. Honorable Speaker, 6 counties actually, and quite a number of constituencies, almost close to 30 constituencies. But Honorable Speaker, just as we are talking about the participation of chairs and vice chairs in the House, you know, it is good that when we are debating a report like this, that the members of those particular constituencies are also in the House. Honorable Speaker, I understand, like now I see the first, on page 11, the first issue is from the member, the constituency of Likoni in Mombasa County. Honorable Speaker, you may understand that the member for Likoni might be busy elsewhere, but I think the people of Likoni constituency elect us, and not just Likoni. The people of Kenya elect us as members of parliament to come represent them, but more importantly, to oversight government on their behalf. And the national government constituency funds are funds of the national government, implemented, Honorable Speaker, by committees, the project implementation committees, under the stewardship of the fund account managers. That is why, Honorable Speaker, you will find many a times, you find the media getting excited whenever an issue touching on CDF is prosecuted, even in a report like this. And many people imagine that this is a matter you can persecute and prosecute the member of parliament for that particular constituency on. Whereas we bear the bigger responsibility of oversight in these funds, we as members of parliament are not the implementers of projects. And therefore it's rather important that when reports like this are in the House, the member of parliament who is charged with the responsibility of oversighting these funds on behalf of the people of the constituency they are elected in are here, Honorable Speaker, to speak to the issues that have been raised by the Auditor General and looked into by the committee of this House that has interrogated all these reports, Honorable Speaker. And I must say it's rather embarrassing and shaming that a number of us have found it better to be out there in the streets, in Maandamano, I don't know over what, Honorable Speaker, demanding we open servers that the people in the streets have no keys for, well as you should be demanding that the money that was allocated to your constituency is properly utilized for the benefit of your constituents. But you have abdicated that responsibility and gone to the streets, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, we must encourage the members, Honorable Speaker. And if you allow me, because it is all the constituencies in Mombasa County, Honorable Speaker. I don't think I see any member from Mombasa County, even one, in the House today. Kwale County, Honorable Speaker. Again, looking around, I don't see a single member from the county of Kwale in the House. Tana River. Honorable Speaker, even before I go to Kilifi, the Honorable Mboko is asking even the member who represents Shakahola. He is not in the House, in Kilifi County. And it's true. The member for Malindi constituency is not in the House. And Magarini. And even Rabai. Only the member of Kilifi North was here. And Honorable Speaker, Taita Taveta County also. Lamu County, which has only 2 members of parliament. I think I've seen the Honorable Uhuru.Raila was here and Honorable Mudhama was somewhere there. At least those 2 are there. And Honorable Speaker, we need to encourage all our members to be present. And going to the substance of the report, Honorable Speaker, for instance, and maybe clarifications I would be seeking from the chair and the mover of this report. If you look at the issues that were raised in relation to Likoni constituency, in the committee observations, the committee observes that the fund account manager provided a satisfactory explanation to the committee. But then when you go to the recommendations are saying that the accounting officer should, within 3 months of the adoption of this report, institute disciplinary action against the fund account manager for violation of the laid down procedures on payment of projects as per the CDF Act of 2013, repealed. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I was just wondering, maybe the Speaker sorry, not the Speaker, the mover, the Honorable Muliungi, when replying, he would probably appraise the House as to why that seems to be contradictory, because if the fund account manager provided a satisfactory answer to the issue that have been raised by the auditor, I would expect then the recommendation should not be adverse against the fund account manager. And I hold no brief for the fund account manager, but I am a believer as an accountant and as a former auditor, Honorable Speaker, in the right of reply and actual prosecution of issues in the right manner, especially when it comes to accounting issues, because accounting issues are, you deal with facts and figures, and therefore, if the committee was satisfied with the explanation that was availed by the fund account manager, I do not think then the committee should recommending that the disciplinary action be taken against that particular fund manager. And I must say, I really don't know who the fund manager is. That's why I was saying, I hope the member for Likoni would have been in this house today to tell us what are the issues. Honorable Speaker, many other issues have been raised in this committee's report relating to how our fund account managers manage the resources that have been dedicated to our constituencies. And I want to encourage all the members of this house to take time to offer meaningful oversight over your CDF monies. Because at the end of the day, as much as we are saying here, we are not the implementers of these projects. We bear responsibility as the people who oversight these resources. And the people back in our constituencies have entrusted us with that responsibility to provide meaningful oversight. And I really want to encourage members, please do not get involved with the day-to-day micromanagement of your NGCDF. Offer meaningful oversight. Because when you get engaged in the day-to-day running of your CDF, in terms of micromanaging, then you become conflicted and you'll not be in a position then, and you lose to offer meaningful oversight, and you consequently lose the moral authority to even critique issues, avoid issues touching on procurement, allow due processes under the Public Procurement and Disposal Act of 2015 to take charge. Because I have seen, Honorable Speaker, in some constituencies, members of parliament insisting on directing who gets what contract, and that is none of our business, Honorable Speaker, as members of parliament. And I want to confirm, Honorable Speaker, for the time I have oversighted my NGCDF funds in Kikuyu, I have never had the opportunity, even at the time when I joined this house in 2013, when we sat in NGCDF committees, the then CDF committees, when we were patrons of CDF, I purpose not to ever sit in that committee to deliberate on procurement issues, and I purpose that I'll be there to offer meaningful oversight. And I believe the people of Kikuyu constituency have enjoyed my term as Member of Parliament from 2013 in being able to roll out development projects that have given value for money, because I have been there to offer proper and meaningful oversight over the committees that we elect to implement these projects. And Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Chepkonga is reminding me that indeed in my first term in Parliament, Honorable Speaker, because of purposing to offer proper and meaningful oversight of NGCDF, the people of Kikuyu appreciated what I had done and elected me unopposed as the first Member of Parliament to be elected unopposed under the 2010 Constitution, Honorable Speaker. And I really want to encourage even our new members to learn from those of us who have been there and those who have been ahead of us, to ensure that your funds at the constituency are properly managed. And to ensure that is done, you can only do that if you offer oversight. And when you do not get involved into deciding what money goes to what projects, which contractor will get what classroom, what contractor, even with your carer funds, the constituency carer funds, allow the CRC committee and the CRC officers on the ground to implement projects without necessarily meddling, especially in the procurement processes. Honorable Speaker, we have seen many members of parliament being charged in courts over procurement issues that we should never involve ourselves in. And therefore, I want to encourage all members of Parliament in this 13th Assembly to ensure that what we are doing is in line with the NGCDF Act, is in line with our Constitution. Let us offer our oversight role. Let us represent our people. And in representing our people in NGCDF matters, we begin by getting involved in the public participation exercises, which directs where you shall take your money to in terms of project implementation. Allow your people in the constituencies, because they have entrusted you as your leader, allow them the opportunity to propose projects and be there to moderate and offer leadership in the prioritization of those projects, but don't seek to be the one to always direct that this money must go to this village, because probably it's the village you come from or the village you have married from. Allow balanced implementation of projects across the constituency. Whether people voted for you or they did not vote for you, do not sideline any part of your constituency because you think you did not get enough votes from that particular area. Balanced development across the constituency pays off at the end of the day, and people will be able to see a difference between now when you're the member of parliament and probably the person you succeeded or your predecessor. Therefore, I just want to encourage members, Honorable Speaker, to also take time to review what your committees are doing. Take time to get involved. Don't send your fund account managers and your constituency office managers to give bursaries on your behalf. Be available on the ground to give out those bursaries. Do not allow your fund account manager and your constituency manager to be the ones to go and commission projects on your behalf. They will commission the next election before you commission your campaign for you or on your behalf. And we have seen instances where fund account managers, constituency office managers succeed their members of parliament because their members of parliament were never available on the ground, and therefore the people get accustomed to the constituency office managers and the fund account managers being the ones doing the work, and they tend to believe it is the work. And they fail to understand that it is you who takes your time in this house to appropriate resources, adequate resources into NGCDF. And you are the one who oversights and ensures that those committees and even your fund account manager, your constituency manager, are indeed implementing projects that are in the interest of the people that have elected you. Honorable Speaker, I want to also ask particularly the members of these 6 counties to not only participate in maandamano, because I know many of them are busy in maandamano, but to take time. I see one of them has just walked in, I'm sure, and I understand them, Honorable Speaker, because they in maandamano in quotes, because many of them, I have seen them hovering around Parliament, but are afraid to appear on the floor of the House because they will be reprimanded for not having gone to the streets. But I want to encourage them also to be strong leaders. If you do not believe in this chaos, if you do not believe in this anarchy, please be gentlemen like Honorable Mulyungi, who has taken time to be here to move this report, because that is what the people in Makueni elected him to do, to come and do in this House, Honorable Speaker. The people of Mwingi, Honorable Speaker, have elected the Honorable Mulyungi to come and do, and the people in the Decentralized Funds Committee have entrusted him with the leadership of that committee, and I indeed want to thank the Honorable Mulyungi. And I was trying to trace who is the vice chair of this committee, Honorable Speaker, because the Honorable Gertrude Mbeyu, who again is from Kilifi County, but is not even in the House, and is a vice chair. And these are kind of chairs and vice chairs we were talking about earlier. And I don't want to encourage members to do what they ought to do with chairs and vice chairs who are not available, either in their committees or their houses, but it is within our rights as members of parliament to also ensure there is proper oversight of our chairs and vice chairs in our committees. But let me just conclude by thanking the Honorable Mulyungi and the committee for the good work and encourage all of us to take a keen interest on the ongoings of our NGCDF committees.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Ganze constituency, Honorable Charo Kazungu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want also to support this report by the committee as it has been presented here. I also want to support the recommendations. But there's an observation that I also wanted to make. In the recommendation, the committee chair has said that they were proposing to have a standardized design for projects and also the issue of costs to be standardized. The problem is in Kilifi County, when it comes to building projects, all the materials are found in one area. All building materials, let's say blocks, and all the big hardwares are found in Kilifi town. But Kilifi town is very expensive. It's very expansive. It's very big. And if we say that we're going to standardize costs, it means that some contractors will not be able to do projects that are found in far-flung areas. So much as I support this report, but I think we need to work on that recommendation, because if we say we're going to make everything standard, it means some projects in far-flung areas are not going to get contractors. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Bura constituency.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute. I want to thank also the committee for the good work they have done. And in that breath, I wish to correct the sentiment by the majority leader, the blanket condemnation and the blanket assumption that any person who comes from that county is involved in the maandamano. I think I reported to this house earlier than the majority leader, but I just stepped out to go and get this important document. Having said that, the constituency, my constituency, Bura constituency, I have seen that there is one issue on the unauthorized withdrawals to the tune of 2.8 million. I have gone through the committee's observation and the recommendation by the committee. I wish to inform the House that it is prudent for us to ensure that there is value for money and there is proper evaluation of any project that is done. And one critical thing that we need to understand is that when I came into the office, I had a meeting with all involved to ensure that everybody who works in that constituency should ensure that they adhere to the rules and the regulations and play by it. But my observation within these 7 months in office is that the NGCDF board need to do proper education. And I am happy that after raising several concerns with them, at least I'm informed that next week they are doing some kind of training for officers. And that is very proper, because sometimes someone might be doing or might be working against the law without the knowledge of that person. So I ought to encourage, and I want to encourage the board to ensure that they properly invest in educating these board members. Because once a board member is illiterate or doesn't know about what is to do, he might be caught while doing what is not expected of the law. So I want to encourage the board to ensure that there is periodic education of the board members. So I wish to thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you.
The Honorable MP for Teso South, Mary Emasi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I arise to support the report by the Auditor General. And Mr. Speaker, from the onset, my observation is that we are looking at the financial reports for the period 2013, 14, 15, 16. Mr. Speaker, we are in 2023. From 2013, that is 10 good years. Mr. Speaker, I'm the Vice Chair Budget and Appropriations Committee, and I was still the Vice Chair Budget and Appropriations Committee in the 11th Parliament. And I remember very well that the Auditor General did appear before our committee, and they requested for additional funding, citing challenges of underfunding, inability to hire more auditors for them to be able to give us timely reports, and many other challenges. And I remember vividly well, we did enhance the budget of the Controller and Auditor General. But Mr. Speaker, it's sad. I'm surprised that we are looking at reports 10 years later. This delays implementation of the recommendations, it delays corrections, and I think, Mr. Speaker, we should also be looking at the report of the Auditor General after the audit. This House did approve the procurement of independent auditors to audit the Office of the Auditor General, so that we can be told what else is still ailing the Office of the Auditor General. Because this House needs to get reports early so that we can be able to action on them, so that action is taken in good time. But if we are going to get reports 10 years down the line, then I think that is an issue of concern to this House. Mr. Speaker, secondly, I also want to agree with some of the observations by the committee, in particular the issue of delayed disbursements to NGCDF funding. And even looking at today, just this financial year, we are 3 months to the closure of the financial year, but members have not even received the half of the allocation to the constituencies. So this is a concern, and I think and I want to support the recommendation that National Treasury should give us a schedule of when disbursement will be made to the board and to the constituencies, so that we are able to get this money on time and we are able to implement our programs and projects in our various constituencies. Mr. Speaker, the issue of fund managers, I want to believe that the board does recruit or employ qualified fund managers. But when they say they are not able to comply with the International Public Sector Accounting Standards, then also that is an issue that seriously needs to be looked on, and I support the recommendations by the committee. And also when it comes to the presentation of the documents and efficiency in terms of processing and implementing our programs, there are serious delays as cited. Some of the accountants that have been posted by the National Treasury, I think, have a lot on their table. They are actually attending to all the departments, government departments within the sub-counties. So I think probably they have too much on their tables. And I think I would support the proposal that National Government Constituency Development Fund Board should be able to employ their own officers, surveyors, architects, accountants, so that then they are audited by the Auditor General, to be able to give us timely services in the constituencies to allow faster and efficient implementation of projects. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I also want to echo again some of the recommendations that have been given with respect to the issue of with respect to the issue of the management of these funds. Mr. Speaker, the delays occasioned by the reasons that have been given actually have led to low absorption or sometimes non-absorption of the funds. If the funds are received late, then you have to carry them forward to the next financial year because of the delays occasioned by the reasons that have already been cited. The Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I support the report by the committee. Thank you.
The MP for Mandera West, followed by the MP for Tharaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I stand to also give my inputs into this report in that it is actually a shame to find out the report, the financial audit of a whole region. The whole region, all the constituencies in a whole region is questionable. It is very unfortunate. And I hope as others will come, we shall see some improvement where, at least in a region, there are some questionable and others not questionable. But the issue here is the way the CDF fund is being appropriated, the way it is released, and the way it is managed by entities who are not part of this CDF system. For example, the district accountant for every sub-county or constituency is the sole AIE holder, and he's the one who keeps all the books of the CDF. And he has many other issues of his own, of the district, under which he is supposed to give priority, or he's giving priority. And hence, he only gives CDF time, he or she will only give CDF time when it is convenient for that person. That is why we have problems. And again, funds are released very late, and like now we have 1 month to the end of the financial year, let's say 2 months, funds have not been released. As soon as they come, and when the CDF committee and the fund manager wants to implement their issues, the district accountant might not be even available. At the same time, without him or her, nothing moves forward. And that is why we see in the rush, then a lot of misappropriation are happening around. On the other side, some of the constituency fund managers are not, of course not some, but all are not answerable to anybody within the constituency. They are answerable to somebody here in Nairobi. They are all answerable to the CEO in Nairobi. And hence, they take their sweet time. Sometimes you see they disappear. They are not available when critical issues are happening. In the recent times when MPs made a lot of noise and the funds for bursaries were released, a lot of bursary money delayed because those entities which are not directly part of the CDF team are not available to fast track and enhance the payment of those bursaries. And hence, I do support the recommendation of the committee, and I want to see that those recommendations are implemented. In many times, we will come up with very nice recommendation, and I don't know what's happening with our implementation committee. There is no follow-up. They are put there and left. Can those recommendations be implemented to the latter? With that, I support. Thank you.
Madam. Yeah, the Honorable Gitonga Murugara, followed by the MP for Emuhaya.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this report with all the jest because it's a very important report, and congratulate the Committee on Decentralized Funds led by my friend and my neighbor, the Honorable Gideon Mutemi Muliungi from Mwingi Central. It's my neighbor because I have strong roots in Mwingi, and that's why I always treat him as a very close neighbor of mine. And thank you for this. Honorable members, CDF is actually in the hands of a fund manager by design of the law of this country. And the role of the Member of Parliament is purely to oversee how the monies are applied. Sometimes we are caught by surprise when we see members of Parliament being hauled to courts to be charged with various offenses relating to CDF. Really, this should not be, because when it comes to misappropriation of CDF funds, stealing of CDF funds, misuse of CDF funds, fraud, etc., or misapplication of contracts, this falls squarely within the hands of the fund managers. However, it is important we be cautious, because we are also responsible if there are cases of neglect of duty, a breach of fiduciary relationships. This comes where a member of Parliament is not responsible enough when it comes to how CDF funds are applied. With all that, it is important we actually take care of these funds, because this is public money. It's part of monies that we are supposed to oversight as members of Parliament. And when that is not properly done, then we are as guilty as those who have misapplied the funds. It goes without gainsaying how important CDF funds are, because all noticeable development in the country is attributed to CDF. I always echo CDF funds. For my constituency of Tharaka, a marginalized constituency, it has been neglected, it has been left behind. But just the last 5 years, I was able to put up, or CDF was able to put up about 200 classrooms across primary schools and secondary schools. This may be a drop in the ocean, but it is vitally important, because if you were to do 200 classes every 5 years, then within a shorter period of time, the constituency would be able to catch up with those from developed counties. There are many problems that face CDF, which problems we must always discuss. And one of them is that of district accountants, as is properly captured in this report. District accountants, or they used to be called district treasurers long time ago, are the people who actually authorize expense of the money by signing the vouchers. This is important. And I am also convinced that we should now divorce the district treasuries from CDF, such that the board, the national government CDF board, is able to employ accountants for CDF offices, so that we do not have to go to the districts, where you are treated with contempt, where I'm told some of them deliberately refuse to sign on the basis that there is nothing in here for me, which really should not be the case. Let us have the board, using the money we reserve for them, recruit for us the boards, so recruit for us the accountants, so that we have a seamless flow of monies to CDF and to projects as required. We must also emphasize on timely release. We are now concerned that the financial year is coming to a close. I think each constituency has received about 57 million. Some are supposed to get 145, others 152 million, and up to now, we only have 57 million. This is of concern to all of us. The board, we must also emphasize that the board does solve our problems in a timely manner, so that when we send our complaints to the board, they are not ignored. Some of these fund managers who actually did all these things in the former Coast Province, the Coast region, may be in office today, and members of Parliament may be complaining that these people have been there for too long. It is for the board to take immediate action, so that we have people prepared to serve constituencies without many hiccups. Also, when it comes to implementation, very good recommendations are in this report. We now require those recommendations being implemented. Some of the recommendations are to be implemented by our own committee on implementation, while others are to be implemented by the board itself. Without this implementation, in spite of the fact that this report may be 10 years old or slightly more or slightly less, then this house would be acting in vain. And this house should not be seen to act in vain, especially on important matters like the National Government Development Fund for each of the constituencies. We must actually exercise our supervisory roles in a manner that is beneficial to the constituencies, so that as I sit in this house, in spite of the fact that I'm not supposed to interfere with what is happening in the constituency CDF office, the fact remains I am the overseer, I am the one to give the oversight, and what is done there is supposed to be under my supervision. Because if you don't, then sincerely, you need to be taken to court for neglect of your own duty under the act that establishes the funds. So with those remarks, it behoves on all members of parliament, whether we are here today, whether some are out there doing other things that are peripheral to our responsibilities as members of parliament. Whether you're in Maandamano, you're where. Please note, your responsibility lies in this house. Your responsibility is in CDF, not in other things like Maandamano and what have you. Because that Maandamano is not going to solve the issues raised by the decentralized funds, the issues properly articulated by the chairperson, Honorable Mulyungi, will not be solved out there, but have to be debated in this house, they have to be resolved in this house, they have to be implemented by a committee of this house. Most important, again, we must also talk about what is happening in the country, because we have said from time to time, it's only debates in this house, it's only talks in this house, including the bipartisan talks. The problems bedeviling our country can only be solved when, as members of parliament, we come to this house, we debate, we agree on what is to be done. Or we are out there in our own committees. We talk, we discuss, we agree, we disagree, but at the end of the day, Kenyans are looking upon us to give leadership. That leadership is not going to be through violent protests out there, destruction of private property, as is happening now. We have seen today vehicles going up in flames, and we are told these are peaceful maandamanos. This is not in consonance with what Honorable Mulyungi has brought here. It is actually contra what this house is supposed to be down. So with those many remarks, I do support this report. Let's agree to pass the recommendations by the committee, and after that, let us move on to implement for the welfare and the welfare and the benefit of the good people of the Republic of Kenya. With those remarks, I do support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable MP for Mohaya, followed by the Phyllis Barto, MP for Moiben.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me begin by congratulating and really appreciating Honorable Mulyungi for a report well done on behalf of the Committee on Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee, and which basically is looking at the accounts and the operations of the CDF funds. Honorable Speaker, CDF funds are a very important arm of the national government funds that go to our constituencies, and it's one other fund that reaches the lowest level of this country, Kenya. And therefore, it is one of the most important funds, given the type of work it does, especially in the education sector and other sectors that are under the CDF. I also want to indicate, Honorable Speaker, that the recommendations of this report are very well placed and are actually relevant to what we usually see in the field when we are down. As I support this report, there are a few items I would wish to speak on. The first one would be the fact that in this report, the committee should have also brought us a paragraph, and not just a small paragraph, but some thick paragraph on oversight and oversight fund, because it is the oversight fund that we have proposed, and which is put at a very small percent of 1%, that would actually enable the Member of Parliament to do the work that he should be doing in terms of assigning the fund manager and the team that is running the CDF. So, the chairman of the committee, in future, I want you to give some real concentration on the oversight fund so that it is strengthened. And that oversight committee is actually given powers. In some of the constituencies, you will find that the fund managers don't like even creation of the oversight committee. And that is where we would get our solace from in terms of oversighting the fund. Honorable Speaker, I really support the issue of overhauling in totality the law that governs the bursaries, because the law and percent terms that are governing the bursaries was made very long time ago. And those percent terms are as low as sometimes 30% of the total allocation of the CDF. But you realize that within time and over time, we have added the CDF. And we needed to also just look at that and review it, Honorable Chair, so that the needs of the people, which has possibly, like in my area, been bursary all the time, are given a good chunk of percent term of that particular fund. And then we balance and harmonize the other areas in accordance moving forward. Honorable Speaker, the other area I would wish to make a comment on is the recommendation on reallocation of funds. The committee observed very well that in some instances we have had fund managers reallocate the use of funds from one project to another without getting direct pre-authorization or some form of authorization from the board. This is very common. But I want to put it again to the committee as you'll be dealing with this, and maybe this can also be included or can be taken over by the chair of the CDF himself, because it deals with the board directly, that whenever we take certain projects to the board for reallocation, Honorable Speaker, it takes too long and sometimes it's frustrating. You may want to reallocate money that was for land. Land is not available. And when you send it to Nairobi, sometimes it takes up to 8 months. Then it is so frustrating that the committee, the board here in Nairobi, must actually also become more efficient in terms of allowing the NGCDF to reallocate funds from time to time, so that it does not lead to a situation whereby a fund manager may reallocate without getting approval from the board. And even I must indicate that with the time, the board has been very, very assertive on the type of projects that we should do. And they'll easily tell you, don't do this, but do this and do this, despite the fact that these are projects that emanate from public participation. So if they have emanated from public participation, which this report has actually explained very well, that must be done. And they have observed in some cases it was not done efficiently. We support the report, but then also the board must adhere to what was approved by the public participation teams. Honorable Speaker, there is a recommendation and an observation on the cost of projects, especially in the coastal regions, the constituencies that were concerned. I was also saddened by the fact that most of the members of parliament from those constituencies were not in the House. I would wish to ask the chair that you should be magnanimous enough in future when you know that certain constituencies are going to be dealt with. If you informed them, it will just be good, but you'll be being magnanimous, not that it's your task, because it looks very, very unfortunate when the members of those constituencies are not there. So I was talking about the standardization of the costs. This has been a matter that keeps on coming here in the House, and we have been very divided because the cost of these buildings are different. But I would wish that the report tells us even further, despite the variation in the cost of each project within the coastal region that you did observe. For instance, if we are talking about a class, that what was the cost, yes, And did you compare that cost with what otherwise these fund managers and the general public is supposed to observe? Because the real guys who determine the cost of any project, for instance, a classroom, are those public works engineers. And their costs tend to be very high all the time. I don't know what the case is in cost, but in our places you'll find that they'll tell you you build one classroom at 1.3 million. And sometimes you realize, no, if you go that direction, you'll not do as much as possible. So we tend to do it much less. How I wish that report would bring that comparison between the public works themselves, who are the official advisors on terms of BQs, and what was happening within the region costs, and also as you move on to other areas. I cannot again say the issue of bringing funds on time. It has been mentioned. It's a key thing that is actually affecting the administration of the CDF. And it wasn't this year because it came in small units. And therefore you'd find that bursaries being given also in numbers, if I may borrow from the NYS language we used when we were still there, that you are giving them slowly in portions to be more direct. So your recommendation on the timely delivery of the funds is very much welcome. There's the issue of the accounting, and I think other members may have spoken on this, that you realize that the accounting and the reports and the documents supporting the accounting are not available. I think this is because of the chain of accounting that is required of these funds. Honorable Speaker, and to the Chair, the process of accounting is fairly too long, that we have in between a person called the district accountant, popularly known as DAs. And these are mysterious guys, you know, they worked in the old government, they are still around, they're very experienced. And from what I usually do whenever I have a discussion with my members, it's like they continuously intimidate them in one way or another, and even hold them at ransom on many cases. I would wish to raise this, Honorable Speaker, to the Chair. And you'll find that they'll have to move at the speed of this person called DA. So you cannot move your projects as fast as possible. And now I realize that even the documents, thank you so much, even the documents for accounting, still they have to go through this person called DA. And remember, he's acting like some god. Because given that he's doing so much work and is the final guy, without him, you cannot move a step. I'm telling you, there is a challenge with that position of DA. And the board should think of either employing its own accountants or having direct accounting from fund manager to the board. That will actually help